Hello, it's a very spooky stream on the Driving to the Top Productions and the Spunky Spectrum Sports. Happy Halloween, everybody. Big D here as we preview Week 9 with my buddy Ryan Swift, or as he likes to be known on X now, B.S.ing Sports. We are previewing Week 9's tilt between his Philadelphia Eagles and my Jacksonville Jaguars. You can also check me out, Big D Podcast, Spotify, and Apple. So Ryan is in Apopka, Florida. So I've got a Floridian joining me.
Yeah, hopefully our connection's pretty good since we're so close.
Yeah, I mean, we just need Starlink over a stereo and a Popka, right?
Yeah.
So, how long have you been a Philadelphia sports fan?
My entire life. Grew up in Philadelphia, so it's what I know. It's what I've been around. And obviously I love to celebrate our wins, but if you look at some of these dates, they're a little aged. That's why my head is right behind the Flyers, or the Flyers banners right by my head. Nobody can read the dates.
I mean, the Eagles have won a Super Bowl more recently than the New York Giants, the Washington Commanders, or the Dallas Cowboys, right?
Definitely the Cowboys. It's always nice to remind them of that.
I'm sure you love Sunday night's game when the Niners are still running in that third quarter, right?
Yeah, I mean the not the Niners. The Cowboys got some real problems. I mean, the Niners just aren't healthy, but the Cowboys even healthy, they're not a good team, which is good to see.
Yeah, and you guys play them next week. So, thinking back to Week 8 game against the Bengals, I mean, I don't know what it is, but why can't the Eagles score a point in the first quarter? In 7 games this year, the Eagles have scored zippity doo dah in the first quarter.
I'll give them a pass for the Bengals game, simply put, because the first drive of the game was from the Bengals and it was 11 minutes long. So at that point, kind of hard to score there. But part of that's, the defense didn't get off the field. But nonetheless, the Eagles did end up scoring on the first drive. It just leaked into the second quarter. So I think there was a positive start from a game planning perspective there. But I do think a lot of it is adjusting to the new scheme, adjusting to new faces both on the offensive line. You've got new weapons on the field as well. And some of those weapons haven't been entirely healthy, right? A.J. Brown's only played half the season to this point. Devontae Smith missed a game. Dallas Goedert's missed a couple games. So the weapons aren't all there. But I think the biggest portion of it is just poor game planning. You hear NFL coaches talk about game script and how they script out the first 15 to 20 plays, and then from there they adjust based on what they see. I just don't think we've gotten off to a good start early in the season as far as the game script of the first 15 or so plays of the game. But from what I've seen the last couple of weeks, I think that, or especially last week, we're on the right track.
Yeah, watching the Eagles from afar, I mean, I don't know why the Eagles have started off bad. I mean, because you would think the first 15 plays would be your best plays, but is this Nick Sirianni's weakness as a head coach? He's not really a play designer or play call like Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, or Andy Reid.
I've said this on our show too, and I think having to be an offensive or a defensive genius as a head coach is a highly overrated attribute. One thing Nick Sirianni does well is he sends a message that his players are very receptive to, obviously, because since he's come in the league, he's the second winningest head coach, has the second highest winning percentage. And yes, I've bitched about him sometimes, but all the Eagles do is win under Nick Sirianni. Into the playoffs all 4 seasons, never finished below 500. That being said, I think that when he tries to get a little too involved is when it gets complicated, right? I think Kellen Moore runs a great scheme that could fit well with the personnel that the Eagles have on the field. I just feel like that we should kind of, go fully hands off and let Kellen Moore start the season, and then from there let Nick Sirianni interject as need be instead of the other way around.
Yeah, because not last year, but 2 years ago, the Kellen Moore and the Cowboys offense was really great. I mean, Dak was effective, CeeDee Lamb, and Tony Pollard before his leg injury at least could provide some running game. But it seems like maybe last year the Eagles started off fast and then faded. Maybe this year the inverse will happen.
Yeah. So the Eagles have had just like an interesting season altogether, if you really think about it. So they've played 7 games. So to this point, only 2 of them have been at Lincoln Financial Field. As I mentioned earlier, we've only had one game where all the weapons were on the field at the same time, right? When A.J. Brown came back, Dallas Goedert was hurt. So the Eagles have just had an interesting offseason or interesting start to the season. You've got the coordinator changes, you've got personnel changes, you've got injury history issues. It's just been an interesting start, and we'll start getting into the real tests here once we get into the divisional games.
And you've only beaten a team with a winning record, and that happened in Brazil.
Well, you can only play who you're across from, right? It's the benefits of getting a second place schedule, huh?
Yeah, you don't have to worry about facing the Detroit Lions or San Francisco 49ers this year.
Well, right now I wouldn't be concerned about facing the 49ers at all. They look like a lackluster team. However, I would be biting my nails if we face the Detroit Lions. They look like a powerhouse.
I'd be biting kneecaps, getting ready to face the Lions.
Yeah, that's a good team. That's just an all around good football team.
Although you handled them well a couple years ago, week 1.
A couple years ago, it ain't the same team. Dan Campbell has been there a couple years now. They've built a real roster. Jared Goff's playing good football. Yeah, the Lions are a good team.
Yeah, and plus, you could argue in many ways Detroit might have the best O-line in football.
We'll see about that when the Eagles are healthy.
Well, I mean, you don't have Jason Kelce. You don't have Jason Kelce leading the Eagle line now.
Yeah, and that's a huge loss for us. I mean, it on paper it looks like a huge loss, but when you watch Cam Jurgens play, I mean, it's not seamless yet, but so far the product on the field has been very promising. And considering he was a handpicked Jason Kelce draft pick, I think we're in good hands here. Plus, we have the best O-line coach in the NFL. So,
yeah. By the way, for the first 6 years of Saquon Barkley's career, I bet you being an Eagle fan must have been annoying watching him play. This year, what would the Eagles be without Saquon Barkley? Because next to Derrick Henry, you could argue Saquon's the best running back in football this year.
Yeah, he has saved the Eagles a couple different times. I mean, if I wanted to really casually get into it, you could say he quote unquote cost them a game too, right? That huge 4th down drop against the Falcons. The way I've been telling people all along is the Eagles are a drop away from being 6-1, and Saquon Barkley has more than made up for that drop. Game against the Saints, he took over in the second half, huge touchdown run that really helped us there. And even against the Giants, right? His first big run kind of got us kick-started there on the first drive. So he has more than made up for that drop, and I feel like he's going to continue to make up for it. And I think they spell him really well at the same time. I think they do a very good job of giving him quality touches and using him in a way that will not just overbearingly load him and end up getting him hurt later in the season.
Yeah, how about this? In year 7 for Saquon, he's averaging 6 yards a carry, which is
that's what happens when you're talented and you have a good O-line.
And I mean, do you think it also helps now that instead of just Daniel Jones in New York, it's Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith?
Yeah, it's not having all the weapons, or not having no weapons like they did in New York, versus having all the weapons. Where as good as Barkley is, it's I think if you watch the games, it's still pretty clear that the offense flows through AJ Brown. Um, Saquon Barkley essentially being the number 2 has helped his productivity.
Yeah, and speaking of the wide receivers, I mean, A.J. Brown missed time with a hamstring. Devontae Smith was knocked out of the Saints game from concussion, but, you know, both of them bring different elements. I mean, A.J. Brown's a freak wide receiver. It's like a running back in a wide receiver's body. Devontae Smith's a great route runner, caught a big touchdown against the Bengals last week, which really iced the game.
Yeah, Devontae Smith's the best wide receiver too in the NFL. I think I ran through the list. I would put him as the number 1 wide receiver on probably 12 teams in the NFL right now, the Jags being included. Brian Thomas Jr. is pretty good, but I think there's about a dozen teams where Devontae Smith's a wide receiver 1. But yeah, he's the best wide receiver 2 in the NFL.
Is Devontae better than a healthy T. Higgins?
I think so. I think he's a better route runner, but I think they're also 2 very different receivers, right? T. Higgins doesn't gain the separation. He tends to use his body and his size. But the big difference for me is that Devontae Smith has missed 2 games in his career, while T. Higgins tends to miss about 3 every season.
And there's a chance T. Higgins might get traded by Tuesday's deadline, but that's neither here nor there.
I don't think it's going to happen, but I mean, it's possible.
I mean, if the Bengals or the trade T. Higgins, what would be the prime trading team?
Oh, there's plenty of teams that need wide receivers. I mean, the Bucks are in the running for the South, and they just lost Chris Godwin for the year, who is on a contract here. So that they could use him. That's the first name that I think of. Let's see. I don't think the Bills are necessarily done, but I also don't. I think it's highly unlikely that they go and get another wide receiver. The Broncos could be in the running. The Broncos are in the running for a wide receiver. See, I see Tim Hawkins as the Steelers. I don't think so. To me, it doesn't make sense. So they already have a T. Higgins prototype where George Pickens is kind of the same guy, but I just don't think that would make a ton of sense.
How about this team? Why not the Houston Texans? I mean, Steph Diggs is gone for the year. Nico Collins will be back next Sunday night against the Lions. Why not get T. Higgins? He could be in the number 2 or 1A there.
I think it's possible. I think he could fit the offense pretty well. And they should have some cap space. Not that T. Higgins is an expensive hit, but with C.J. Stroud on his rookie deal, I don't know what their cap situation looks like, but it's possible.
It'd be better than Cleveland's cap situation.
We're the Saints.
You're not kidding. I mean, the Saints always $80 million in cap hell.
Yeah, that's because they keep fixing it by pushing money down the line instead of, just letting some of these contracts die out and stuff. Like, yeah, it's no, I don't understand it. I don't understand how Mick Rooney still has a job there as the GM, to be honest with you. But
I don't understand how Dennis Allen's still the head coach, but he won't be the head coach after this year.
Yeah, we'll see how the Saints go, because the NFC South is a little bit competitive right now. I know the Falcons just took one from the Bucks, which is big for them, but the NFC South is not over yet, not even close.
I'll tell you this. I mean, nobody can stop anybody defensively in that division. And you guys play the Panthers. I don't know exactly what week it is. Is it 12 or 14?
I think it's after the Ravens game.
Yeah, that might be a week where you stack the Eagles. You just play all the Eagles against Carolina.
I'll be honest with you. In fantasy, I'm playing all the Eagles this week. Jags got a world of problems on defense.
I think we've got water problems everywhere. I mean, yeah, I mean.
So how do you feel about Trevor Lawrence as a Jags fan?
I mean, this year hasn't necessarily gone well. I mean, there were a lot of good things that happened against Green Bay. I mean, interception, but he threw for 300 yards, a couple touchdowns, and one pass that in England was great. I mean, I think people are frustrated because this Jag team has lost 4-1 score games, and as you proved last year, teams are great in 1-score games, and then teams can absolutely poop the bed in 1-score games. But I mean, but if you look at, I mean, Trevor Wise this year, he's thrown for 1,800 yards, 11 touchdowns, 4 picks with 93 passer rating. So, I mean, if you basically double that for a year, it's what, 23, 24 touchdowns, 8 picks. I don't think it's bad. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is to blame for everything that's happening. I think it's the problem that he's with a dysfunctional team.
Yeah, I mean, I think Trevor Lawrence, I don't think Trevor Lawrence is ever going to live up to the hype that came out of college, right? It was very unlikely to begin with. It was very Peyton Manning-esque. However, I think he's also been misled by some really bad coaching in his career.
I will say this. He who shall not be named may out Bobby Petrino as the worst NFL coach.
So what do you think about Doug Pederson and his coaching staff?
Doug Pederson won't be the coach of this team next year. I'm
surprised Doug Pederson's the coach of this team this week.
Oh, I'll be honest with you. If we had lost to New England, Doug Pederson's going to Siberia.
So my thoughts, because obviously I watched Doug Pederson too. Doug Pederson could be a great coach. Doug Pederson hitches his wagon to this dead weight named Press Taylor, who is the worst offensive mind I've ever seen in football.
Maybe Luke Getsy in Chicago, but that's just me. Luke
Getsy. Have you watched the Bears?
I saw the Bears last week coming off a bye. Absolutely do nothing for 3.5 quarters against the Commanders.
Press Taylor engineered arguably the greatest quarterback downfall we've ever seen in Carson Wentz. And then Doug Pederson went on to want to promote this guy, and it got him fired. And then you look at the way Trevor Lawrence is playing. I know you rattled off his numbers, and his numbers don't look bad, but the eye test doesn't look great. And it's like, why does Doug Pederson continually hitch his wagon to this guy? He's not creative with his play calling. He doesn't scheme his best players open. Travis Etienne has regressed, injuries and performance since Press Taylor really took over. It's just not good. And Doug Pederson's got to know that his job is on the line again. And at some point, he's got to be like, hey, Press, this ain't working out. Let's get at it. Go ahead and get out of here.
I mean, maybe Doug Pederson doesn't have that personality. I mean, we saw Doug Pederson bench Jalen Hurts in that Week 17 game against the Commanders. I have no idea who the Eagles' third-string quarterback was. And I'm like, at least Jalen Hurts. I mean, even Jalen Hurts 2020, I'm like, I like Jalen Hurts as a player. I'm like, play him. But honestly, I think we know Doug Pederson's gone after this year. I mean, whether it's during the year or after the year, I think Jackson's going to be looking for another head coach.
I mean, I think Balky needs to go too. I think Khan needs to just wipe the whole thing and start fresh.
I
I don't
mean,
think Balky's done the team any favors either.
the Jaguars have missed on too many guys. I mean, why the belief did we take Trayvon Walker in the 22 draft when everybody who I saw, and I saw a lot of Michigan. Every time I saw Michigan play in 2021, Aiden Hutchinson was sacking the other team's quarterback. I'm just thinking, why not get the best defensive player in college football? Instead, you get a guy who didn't even play at Georgia. He a freaking break.
Yeah, I think the roster's mismanaged. I think the coaching isn't great. The whole thing needs to be wiped out, to be honest with you, and just start fresh.
I mean, you think that? I mean, how much blame do you think Trevor gets?
I think he gets minimal blame. He gets minimal blame from me. I'm sure there are a ton of people out there who just look at scoreboards and records and go, "Yep, it's the quarterback's fault." But to me, to be honest, he doesn't get a ton of blame from me. Because to my point, you went from Urban Meyer to Press Taylor running the offense. Neither one of those names, those guys don't inspire growth. They don't inspire confidence. I think an interesting move, and I said this before the season, Ben Johnson's almost like certain to leave Detroit in the offseason. Like if the Jaguars can land Ben Johnson with Trevor Lawrence at quarterback, things start to get a little interesting. That's a team that I'd be like, okay, they're really trying now. Let's see what they can do.
Yeah, I don't want a Mike McCarthy head coach. I don't want these Mike McCarthy head coach. I don't want a defense my head coach because he won't get the best out of Trevor. I want one of these hotshot young coordinators. Ben Johnson. Trying to think who'd be another good hire. The Texans OC, Bobby Slovak.
Yeah, Bobby Slovic.
Yeah, Slovak. Although people in Houston complain that he's not throwing the ball more with C.J. Stroud, but I think that's partly because Houston's O line is absolute dog shit. But
Well, that and C.J. Stroud's number one dude is on the shelf until at least next week.
yeah, and Joe Mixon missed all that time, and seemingly Joe Mixon's become the most valuable running back in football, right?
Yeah, I mean he's looked great since he come back. I have him on a couple different parlays for anytime touchdown tonight.
I'm sure Cincinnati Bengals. I'm sure Joe Burrow will let Joe Mixon in his backfield, right?
I don't think Chase Brown's done too bad. I think Chase Brown and Zach Moss are fine.
They're certainly better than anybody in Dallas's backfield.
Yeah.
I mean, but for everything that's been bad this year, there is one bright spot for the Jaguar offense, and that's Brian Thomas. Now, who knows if he's playing this Sunday? He's got a rib injury.
Doesn't sound like he will. Sounds like he's out a couple weeks.
Oh boy! So that means we might end up playing this week without Christian Kirk and Brian Thomas. Oh, Gabriel Davis is hurt. Oh, great!
Parker Washington, baby, here we come.
The number, yeah. How expensive is Parker Washington on DraftKings this week?
Yeah, I mean he'd be a great DFS play. I mean it's just going to be Evan Ingram week though. Evan Ingram's going to see like 15 targets. Our linebackers can't cover worth a shit anyway, so.
If the Jacks can project against Jalen Carter, though. Yeah. Well, BTJ's got 2 limited practices, but limited practice is different than running around over the middle and having a defensive back in your ribs. You there?
Yeah, fire truck drove by and my dog has started howling, so I've muted myself.
But who does Brian Thomas Jr. remind you of? The Jaguar rookie receiver.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who he would remind me of. I mean, I could see a Nico Collins comparison. I think they're very similar athletically, and they got the same build.
Maybe an in shape and maybe a Brandon Ayuk.
No, I don't think Thomas Jr. is close to being the route runner Ayuk is, but I think he's got some big playability and he's explosive.
No, I mean in terms of yak guy, not the route runner Ayuk is, but at least yet.
Oh well, if we're going yak, then I mean, maybe I don't know. Everybody in the Niners offense gets a ton of yak. It's kind of the way that whole offense is set up.
I mean, they could. I mean, Brock Purdy could give me a stick around and I'd run 50 yards. But I mean, I thought Evan Ingram was going to be a bigger play last week. I mean, he caught a big touchdown at the end to tie it up, but I thought Evan Ingram was going to be big. Of course, you're familiar with him from his time with the G-Men.
Yeah.
But at least he's got a decent quarterback.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't see this. See, the Jags weird me out because like they're not really a good team. They don't really scare anybody, but they've managed to play in a lot of close games this year. So I mean, even with Kirk out, Brian Thomas Jr. questionable. Like I don't know. There's something about the Jags, they just don't go away.
I'll tell you what really impressed me from the Eagles last week, not just offensively, but defensively. I thought Philly did a great job on Burrow and Chase in the second half, forced the pick, got some pressure, and only gave up, 7 points, which against a top 5 quarterback, top 5 wide receiver showed me something.
Yeah, the young guys made some plays, especially once Darius Slay went out. Isaiah Rodgers had a pretty decent game. He made a couple big plays, including the batted ball that C.J. Gardner-Johnson intercepted. Cooper DeJean on fourth down made pretty good play on Jamar Chase, especially given the fact that there was motion, it was man coverage, and I watched the Eagles get toasted on that play twice in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They did a fantastic job covering that route. I'm excited for a couple of these pieces in the secondary, and of course, Quinyon Mitchell. He seems like he's going to be a lockdown corner for a long time.
How did Quinyon Mitchell end up to the Eagles? I mean, how many teams were so stupid and not drafting the best cornerback in the country last year?
I'm mistaken, somebody went one pick ahead of him, yeah?
And that being Terry Arnold with the Lions, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's who it was. But yeah, I mean, it was a great steal for the Eagles.
Yeah, I actually wanted Quinyon Mitchell and Jackson, but we ended up getting Brian Thomas Jr., so we're not complaining.
I mean, it all worked out.
Actually, if Brian Thomas Jr. plays, then maybe they end up seeing each other.
Yeah. Good luck to Brian Thomas Jr. then.
Yeah. But thinking back to all teams don't play against each other every year because you're in the NFC East, we're in the AFC South, but the last time we played was 20, I think it was
the rain game.
Yeah. Yeah, because that was the game the week after Hurricane Ian hit here, and what was left of Ian hit the whole East Coast that day because there were games in Baltimore and Philly, which saw buckets of rain and wind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a rain game. I think the Eagles had one of the teams had a pick six. I think it was the Jags, and the Eagles ended up coming back. I think they were down 16-0 or something like that, and they ended up coming back and winning that game.
Yeah, 14-0. Andre Cisco pick six.
Yeah.
And just like this year, the Eagles didn't score in the first quarter. Shocker, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was an ugly game. I remember that one. That was a really, really ugly game.
Yeah, that was Doug Pederson's return to Philly. So Quentin Mitchell was the first cornerback taken last year. The Lions traded with Dallas. Thomas was between Arnold and Mitchell.
Yeah, that's what it was. I knew Arnold was pretty close to Mitchell. I just couldn't remember if he was right before or right after.
But thinking back to that game, Philly Miles Sanders was Philly's leading rusher that game. 27 carries, 134 yards. Now you can't even see the field much with Carolina.
Yeah, that was his last good year, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Yeah. Jamal Agnew caught the most passes from Jacksonville that day, 4 for 50 yards. uh, is AJ Brown? I mean, does AJ Brown matter more to this team than any other player outside Jalen Hurts?
I said this last week on the pod that AJ Brown is the MVP of the Eagles. I think he means a lot more. Without him, Jalen Hurts, like, it's night and day. There's no comparison. Jalen Hurts essentially can't play football without AJ Brown.
Quickly before we wrap up, what are a couple keys to this game?
Run the damn ball. Don't overthink it. I know Jacksonville's secondary struggled against the pass, but your bread and butter is when you run the football. Don't work outside your game plan. Just run the football.
And it's not just with the running back. I mean, I don't know about you, but Philly's touch push is. I mean, I don't know how the Bengals stopped them a couple times, but Jalen Hurts is typically really good with the touch push.
Hey, we only got stopped once, right? And then we ran it again and scored.
I mean, that I don't even seeing it 3 or 4 times and trusting my guillotine league. I've got Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. I'm not complaining, but it still looks weird seeing a guy follow another dude's backside into the end zone.
I'll take it. I don't care who scores. I'll take any of them. Eagles winning is what matters first.
Yeah, especially with you guys. I mean, you're 5-2. To half game back of the Commanders in what's turned into maybe a top, I don't know what you say, top heavy NFC with the NFC North teams, Washington, Philly, Atlanta, and then what's left of the West, right?
Yeah, I think once the 49ers get healthy, they'll start being who we expected the 49ers to be.
I'll tell you what, I think the LA Rams won the NFC West.
They looked really good once they got Puka and Cutback, but it's just a matter of keeping all those guys on the field.
I think the Rams go on a heater because you look at LA's schedule until the Bills game. They've got, Seattle, Miami, very winnable games. Even that Bills game's more winnable than you think because the Bills are coming off San Francisco.
Yeah, we'll see how the season plays. There's all kinds of unexpected stuff.
Yeah, so and then next 2 weeks for you guys, you've got the Cowboys, Commanders, and some guy named Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, and speaking of Lamar Jackson, 2 straight did not practices to start the week.
Oh boy, and my buddy's got Lamar in our guillotine league. So Ryan, where can people contact you?
You can find me on Twitter at B.S.ing_sports, and you can find us on YouTube where we're streaming 4 to 5 days a week. B.S.ing Sports Podcast. Yeah, just hit us up on Twitter. There's a link to all our socials in there, so you can follow us everywhere. Right down here.
B.S.ing Sports. Oh, come on. It better not take me to B.ing Sports. Oh, it's, just subscribe to you, boss man.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, and then of course you can always find me Big D podcast, Spunky Spectrum Sports, Driving the Top Productions. So, Ryan, are you the after DeAndre Swift now? Are you the now the most famous Eagles Swiftie in Philly?
No, I think Taylor still might have me beat just because she's dating Jason's brother.
Oh gosh, not again! Please don't mention her, please. I know it's Halloween. Give me a break. Don't mention she who shall not be named.
It's not that bad. You get over it. I got over it after a while.
All right, so thanks for tuning in to tonight's stream. Happy Halloween, everyone.
Thanks for having me on, Dylan.